She cheated on me last night. I know because I watched it happen. Unfolding like a slow-motion car crash I was powerless to stop. The worst part? I hadn't even meant to find out. It started as a late night at work. Just another in a long string of 14-hour days, drowning in code, chasing deadlines that didn't care if I had a wife waiting at home. When I finally packed up and left my office, my mind was already rehearsing my apology to Sarah. Another missed dinner. Another broken promise. I told myself she'd understand. She always did. But as I stepped into the dimly lit parking garage, my phone buzzed. A notification from our home security system. Front door opened, 11:27 p.m. Odd. Sarah was supposed to be asleep by now. Still, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she had gone to grab something from the car. I almost didn't check the live feed. Almost. The image that loaded onto my screen made my blood turn to ice. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, stepping inside our house. Sarah leading him in, her hand brushing against his arm. A smile on her lips that wasn't for me. I stood frozen, staring at my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. My first thought was denial. It had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a friend, a colleague. But then, as I watched, she turned to him, and she kissed him. Not the kind of kiss you give an old friend. Not the kind of kiss you give when you're just being polite. No, this was different. It was slow, lingering, intimate. The kind of kiss that once belonged to me. A sharp pain shot through my chest. The air in the parking garage felt too thin. I wanted to tear my eyes away from the screen, to unsee what I had just witnessed. But I couldn't. I watched as they moved inside, Sarah closing the door behind them. Then the feed went dark. My fingers clenched around my phone, the edges digging into my palm. For weeks, months, maybe, I had ignored the signs. The late-night phone calls she always took in another room. The way she had grown distant, her touch fleeting, her laughter forced. The scent of a cologne that wasn't mine lingering on her clothes. I had told myself I was imagining things, that I was just paranoid. But now there was no denying it. Sarah was cheating on me, and I had the proof in the palm of my hand. I climbed into my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I could drive home right now, confront them, catch them in the act. But something stopped me. No, not yet. A confrontation wouldn't be enough. Not for something like this. I needed more. More than just a blurry security feed. More than just my word against hers. I needed the truth. And when I got it, she wouldn't see it coming. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city, my mind a hurricane of thoughts, each one darker than the last. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she had just burned into my chest. But anger wouldn't fix this. I needed clarity. I needed answers. By the time I finally pulled into the driveway of my house, the lights inside were off. The car he arrived in, his car, was gone. Sarah was asleep, tucked in our bed as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just kissed another man under the same roof where we had built our life together. I sat in the dark car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers ached. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Had it started before she began pushing me to sell my company? The thought sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. Over the past few months, Sarah had been increasingly insistent about my work. "You're overworked, Michael," she'd say, her fingers trailing over my arm, her voice sweet, soothing. "Maybe it's time to move on. Sell the company. Take a break. Start over somewhere new." At the time, I thought she was just worried about me, that she wanted us to spend more time together. But now, the timing of it gnawed at me. Was she trying to make sure I had nothing left before she walked away? I stepped inside as quietly as I could, my body moving on autopilot. The house smelled like her perfume, familiar, yet suddenly foreign. I passed by the living room, and that's when I saw it. Her phone, unlocked, sitting on the coffee table. Sarah never left her phone unattended. Not anymore. I hesitated for only a second before picking it up, my pulse pounding in my ears. I opened her messages. There, at the top, was a conversation with a contact labeled business partner. I clicked it, and that's when I saw the truth laid bare. Thomas. a name from her past, a man she once claimed was nothing more than a distant memory. And yet, the messages told a different story. Sarah, I miss you. Thomas, I miss you too, baby. Last night was incredible. Sarah, I can't wait until he's gone. Then we'll finally be free. The room tilted around me. I set the phone down carefully, as if it were a ticking bomb, because in many ways it was. Sarah wasn't just cheating. She was planning something that didn't include me. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't just dealing with a betrayal. I was dealing with a conspiracy. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed beside Sarah, staring at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing while my mind replayed every moment from the past few months with new, devastating clarity. The secrecy, the sudden shift in affection, the way she had started urging me, no, pressuring me, to sell my company. It wasn't just an affair. It was a setup. At some point in the night, Sarah stirred, rolling over to drape an arm across my chest. Her fingers brushed my skin, warm and familiar, and for a split second, my body betrayed me, responding to her touch like it always had. But then I remembered him. Thomas. I turned away. She murmured something in her sleep, but I didn't respond. I just lay there, rigid, waiting for morning to come. When the sun finally rose, I was already in my home office, staring at my laptop screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I had built my company from the ground up, poured everything into it. And now? My wife was trying to convince me to throw it away, while she planned a future with another man. I needed to know how deep this went, so I did what I did best. I hacked into her phone records. It didn't take long. I knew her passwords. She had given them to me years ago, back when trust still existed between us. Within minutes, I had access to everything. And what I found made my blood run cold. Frequent calls and texts to Thomas. Meetings at hotels, restaurants, places we had never been together. But the worst part? She had been in contact with a real estate agent. A listing had been sent to her just a few days ago. A house. A beachfront house, states away. Under his name. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. Sarah wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to leave me. But not before securing her future. Not before convincing me to sell my company, cash out, and split everything with her. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stay calm. She thought she was being careful. Thought I was too busy, too trusting, too blind to see the truth. But now, the game had changed. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. No, I was going to play along. Let her think she was winning. And when the time was right, I would be the one to pull the rug out from under her. By the time Sarah woke up, I had already set my plan in motion. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, pretending to scroll through emails on my laptop. But in reality, I was watching her, studying every movement. She walked in wearing one of my shirts, her hair still messy from sleep, giving me a sleepy smile, the kind that used to make my heart skip a beat. "Morning," she murmured, leaning down to kiss my cheek. I let her. I forced myself to smile, to act normal, because she thought everything was normal. She had no idea that I knew. No idea that I had read every text, seen every call, traced every step she had taken behind my back. "Morning," I said casually, taking another sip of coffee. "I was thinking maybe you're right." She blinked, caught off guard. "About what?" "The company." I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck as if I were still unsure. "Selling it. Taking a break. Maybe we do need a fresh start." Her eyes widened slightly, but she masked it quickly, giving me a soft, understanding smile. "I just want what's best for us, Michael." I almost laughed at the audacity of her lie. Instead, I reached for her hand across the table, squeezing it gently. "I know." She relaxed, squeezing my hand back. "Really? You're actually considering it?" I nodded. "I mean, I built the company to be sold eventually, right? Maybe now's the right time." I saw it then, the flicker of victory in her eyes, the slightest hint of excitement. She thought she had one. She thought I was falling for it. I held back the rage boiling inside me, forcing my voice to stay light. "Maybe we can take a trip to somewhere nice. Just the two of us." She beamed. That sounds perfect. Perfect. She had no idea that I was leading her straight into her own trap. The moment Sarah left for the day, I went to work. I called my best friend, Jake. If there was one person I could trust in this mess, it was him. We'd known each other since college, and if anyone could help me expose Sarah's betrayal, it was him. "She's trying to screw you over," Jake muttered after I finished explaining everything. "And you're telling me you're just playing along?" "For now," I said, pacing the length of my office. "If I confront her, she'll just lie. Twist the story. Make herself the victim. But if I let her think she's winning—" I exhaled sharply. "She'll get careless." Jake was silent for a moment. "Then, you need proof." "I already have the texts and call logs," I said. "But I need something undeniable. Something that destroys her." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Something that leaves no room for doubt." Jake let out a low whistle. "All right, man. Let's set a trap." We started with the fake business deal. Jake knew a guy, a private investigator named Carter who specialized in digital forensics. He helped us create an illusion, a golden opportunity, a lucrative overseas investment that would require me to leave the country for a few days. And just like that, I dangled the bait in front of Sarah. That evening, over dinner, I casually brought it up. "There's a potential buyer for the company," I said, twirling my fork between my fingers. "A big investor from Dubai. I might have to fly out next week to finalize things." Sarah perked up instantly. "That's amazing, Michael," she said, barely containing her excitement. "How long would you be gone?" "A few days. Maybe a week." She nodded, chewing her lip thoughtfully. "I mean, if this is really happening, we should start looking at next steps, right? Where we want to move, what we want to do after." There it was. The push. The moment she started thinking I was actually going to hand her everything. I smiled, playing the role of the devoted, unsuspecting husband. "Yeah, we should." She reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "I'm so proud of you." I almost laughed at the irony, because in a week, when I left for my fake business trip, I'd be right here, watching as she walked straight into her own downfall. The moment I left for my business trip, Sarah wasted no time. I had expected her to be cautious, maybe wait a day or two before making a move. But the second my plane was supposed to take off, she was already in action. I sat in a hotel room across the city, watching the live feed from the security cameras I had discreetly installed around the house. My heart pounded in my chest, anger and adrenaline mixing in a way that made my fingers tremble against the keyboard. 11:27 p.m. The same time as before. The front door opened, and there he was, Thomas, tall, smug, walking into my house like he owned it, like I didn't exist. Sarah greeted him with a kiss, her hands trailing over his chest, whispering something in his ear that made him smirk. My stomach twisted. I clenched my fists, but I forced myself to stay still. Not yet. They made their way to the living room, and that's when I heard it. "I think he's actually selling," Sarah murmured, pouring herself a glass of wine. "He's ready to let it all go. It's finally happening." Thomas chuckled, running a hand through his hair. "Took long enough. Once the money's in your account, we disappear." Disappear. I exhaled slowly, rage clawing up my throat. So that was the plan. Take my money, take his hand, and leave me in the ashes of a life I had built from nothing. I had suspected it, but hearing it from her own lips was a different kind of pain. I should have confronted them right then. I should have stormed into my house and torn it all down. But no, they weren't just going to walk away from this unscathed. I had one final move to play, and by the time I was done, they wouldn't see it coming. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I barely slept, barely ate. All I did was watch. Watch them laugh, drink wine in my living room, touch each other like my existence was nothing but an inconvenience they were about to erase. But I wasn't the one being erased. They were. By morning, the final piece of my plan was in place. I had already spoken to my lawyer. The sale of my company? A complete fabrication. The assets? Moved. The accounts? Protected. Everything Sarah thought she was about to take from me? Gone. But that wasn't the best part. No, the best part was the security system I had upgraded weeks ago. The cameras, the audio recordings, the live stream I had set up for a very exclusive audience. Close friends, family, and of course, Sarah's parents. By evening, everything was ready. And then I made the call. Sarah picked up on the second ring. "Hey, love," she purred, playing the perfect wife. "How's Dubai?" I almost laughed. "Oh, it's incredible," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But you know what's even better?" "What?" she asked, sipping from a wine glass. "The view from my laptop." There was a beat of silence. Then, "What?" I switched the feed, pressed a button, and suddenly, she could see what I saw. Herself, sitting in our living room. With him, Thomas, now looking directly at the camera, frozen. Sarah went pale. "Michael," she whispered, her voice shaking. Smile. I cut her off. "You're live." She didn't understand at first, but then her phone started vibrating, message after message, call after call. Friends, family, her parents. Everyone had seen it. Everything. Panic set in. She scrambled to shut the laptop, but it was too late. The damage was done. She had wanted a fresh start. Well, now she had one. Just not the way she expected. "Michael, please." Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper, trembling with desperation. I watched her through the screen, her face pale, her fingers gripping the edge of the coffee table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Thomas, on the other hand, had already stood, running a hand through his hair, muttering curses under his breath. I stayed silent for a moment, letting the weight of the situation settle in, letting her feel it. "Please what, Sarah?" I finally asked, my voice calm. Too calm. "Please pretend I didn't just catch you. Please forget the fact that you were planning to rob me blind and disappear." I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. "I don't think so." She swallowed hard, glancing at Thomas. He was already backing away from her, distancing himself like the coward he was. "You bastard," Thomas muttered, running a hand down his face. "You planned this." I smirked. "Of course I did." Sarah's breath hitched. "I didn't mean for this to happen." I laughed, the sound cold, empty. "No? Then tell me, Sarah, which part didn't you mean for?" She opened her mouth, closed it. She had nothing. No more lies. No more rehearsed manipulations. The phone in her lap buzzed again. Another call. Probably her mother. Or maybe one of our friends, watching her fall apart in real time. Good. I wanted her to know she had no way out. "I trusted you," I said, quieter this time. "I loved you." I let the words sink in before delivering the final blow. "But you? You were just waiting for the right moment to betray me." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Michael, I didn't let her finish." "Don't." Then I hung up. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Sarah and Thomas? They weren't my problem anymore. Their destruction was their own doing, and I was finally free. I stared at my laptop screen for a long time after ending the call, listening to the silence of my hotel room. It was over. The betrayal, the lies, the manipulation, it had all crumbled around Sarah and Thomas in real time, exposed for everyone to see. And yet, as much as I had wanted this, as much as I had planned for this moment, a strange emptiness settled in my chest. 13 years. That's how long I had loved her. How long I had believed we were us. And now? Now, there was nothing left. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "Dude, that was insane. You good?" I let out a breath and typed back. "I don't know." Because the truth was, I didn't know. What was I supposed to feel? Relief? Satisfaction? Closure? Instead, all I felt was exhaustion. Another message popped up. This time, from an unknown number. "Michael, please pick up. We need to talk. Please." Sarah. I stared at her message, my thumb hovering over the screen. She still didn't get it. There was nothing left to talk about. I blocked her number. Then, without another thought, I turned off my phone, shut my laptop, and for the first time in weeks, maybe months, let myself close my eyes. Sleep came quickly, and when I woke up the next morning, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. I expected silence from Sarah after I blocked her. I was wrong. By the next morning, My inbox was flooded. Emails, messages from unknown numbers, even a voicemail from her mother. I ignored them all. But then Jake called. "She showed up at your house," he said without preamble, banging on the door like a lunatic. "I told her you weren't there, but she wouldn't leave." I sighed, rubbing my temples. Of course she didn't. "She's unraveling, man." Jake's voice was sharp. "She's not sorry she cheated. She's sorry she got caught." I already knew that. Still, I had to see it for myself. So, later that evening, I drove back home. And sure enough, there she was, sitting on the front steps, arms wrapped around herself like a woman on the verge of collapse. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her makeup smudged. For the first time in years, she didn't look composed. Didn't look in control. Good. The second she saw me, she shot up. "Michael," she breathed, stepping toward me. "Please, just—" I held up a hand. "No." She flinched. I stepped past her, unlocking the door. "You need to leave." "Michael, I was stupid," she rushed out. "I made a mistake. But it was never about the money, I swear. It was just— I don't know what I was thinking." I turned to her then, meeting her frantic gaze. "Yes, you do." Tears welled in her eyes. "I love you." I laughed, shaking my head. "You don't love me, Sarah. You love what I gave you. And now that it's gone, you suddenly remember how much I meant to you." I scoffed. "That's not love. That's regret." Her lips trembled. I didn't let her finish. "I gave you everything," I said quietly, "and you threw it away." She reached for me. "Please, Michael, we can fix this." I stepped back. "No, you can live with this." And with that, I shut the door in her face. Her sobs echoed on the other side, but I didn't listen. I was done. For good. Sarah didn't stop. Over the next few days, she tried everything: emails, calls from different numbers, even showing up at my office. Each time, I ignored her. Each time, she grew more desperate. But it wasn't until Jake sent me a screenshot that I realized just how low she was willing to sink. "Sarah's spreading rumors, man. She's telling people you cheated first, that you were the one planning to leave her." I stared at the message, my jaw tightening. Typical. She couldn't fix what she had done, so she was rewriting the story, trying to make herself the victim. Too bad for her. I had receipts. That night, I made one final move. I forwarded every message, every recording, every piece of undeniable evidence to the same people Sarah had been lying to. Our friends, her family, even her boss. Then I posted the truth. Not out of spite, not for revenge, but because I refused to let her turn me into the villain of her story. It didn't take long for the fallout to hit. Sarah lost her job. Turns out companies don't like hiring people who publicly plot to steal their spouse's assets. Thomas? He vanished. The moment Sarah had nothing to offer, he was gone. And me? I walked away from the wreckage, untouched. For the first time in years, I had nothing holding me back. No lies, no betrayal, no Sarah, and it felt damn good. A month passed, then two. Sarah tried to reach me a few more times, but eventually, the messages stopped. I heard through mutual friends that she was struggling, unemployed, living in a tiny apartment and alone. Thomas had disappeared the second she became useless to him, and the friends who once surrounded her had distanced themselves after seeing the truth. I should have felt pity, but I didn't. She had made her choices, and now she was living with them. One evening, as I sat in a bar with Jake, my phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. "Michael, I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk? Just once?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, slowly, I typed my response. "You made your bed, Sarah. Now lie in it." And with that, I blocked her number. For good. That night, as I raised a glass with my friends, surrounded by people who actually cared about me, I realized something. Sarah's betrayal hadn't destroyed me. It had set me free. And for the first time in a long time, I was finally happy. The end. If you like this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.